to recite the bracha, the blessing together. Now I'm going to pray the Levinson aloud for this side. Baruch Adonai Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam dayan haemes. Amen. We learn in the book of Job, Adonai Natan, Adonai Lokach, Yehi Shem Adonai Mevorach. The Lord gives, the Lord takes away, but still we thank God for all He is.
Ladies and gentlemen, as we begin our services, if we can please kindly turn off all cell phones or electronic devices, or please place them on silent. Thank you.
Kirachem Ava Banim, Richam Adonai Yireav. As a father has compassion for his children, so may Adonai our God have compassion for Eileen, for Josh and Becky, for Dan and Hagar, for Alana, for Barbara, and Amy and Elliot, and Deborah and Liz, and Robert and Ellen, and all of the nieces and nephews and cousins and family and friends of Roy Levinson, who we come here to remember this day. God knows how we are fashioned. God remembers we are but dust. Our days are like grass. We flourish the flowers in the field. A wind passes over us, and we are no more. But we trust that Adonai's compassion is everlasting. God's kindness to children's children endures age after age, unchanging. We begin our service by reciting Psalms, thus linking Roy's life to our ancient Jewish tradition, to the Jewish people, and to the eternity of God.
Psalm 121, a song for saints. I lift up my eyes to the mountains, from where will my help come? My help comes from Adonai, maker of heaven and earth. Adonai will not let your foot give way, your guardian will not slumber. The guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. Adonai is your protection, a guardian at your right hand. By day the sun will not strike you, nor the moon by night. Adonai will guard you from evil and will guard your soul. Adonai guards your going and coming, now and forever.
Please join me.
Those are the Hebrew words of Psalm 23, a legacy of comfort left to us by King David. Words so familiar to us from settings such as this. And so we know the English as well. Recite with me. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest the table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
In synagogue on Shabbat, we're currently reading from the book of Bamidbar, the book of Numbers, the fourth book of the Torah. But it's already in the first book, the book of Bereshit, that we learned that when a loved one passes away, there's members of the family who come forward and share stories and reflections. As that ancient tradition will continue here this morning, as first we'll call upon Eileen, and then Josh, Dan, and then Alana.
Roy, bursting with energy, going back to the source. Now the night sky will sparkle more brightly. Sometimes a life is led with such magnitude of meaning and energy. Life's great play or a giant wave that long after the actors have left the stage and the wave has rolled back to the sea, we continue to feel their impact. Roy lived his life this way. He gave his very best to all of us, and now with heavy, sorrowful hearts, we gather to remember a most remarkable man. I'm heartbroken. I lost my best friend, my partner, who was completely dedicated to my happiness and well-being, who always made me feel loved and appreciated, who kept me laughing and entertained, and who every morning said, "It's such a privilege to wake up next to you." Or later in the day, he would say, "Have I told you that I loved you today?" Roy always did his very best, gave as much as he could, and set his bar at its very highest rung. And with his example, he inspired us to reach for the stars. He said yes when it seemed there wasn't an extra minute in his schedule. He came running at any hour of the day or night if his friend or family needed his expert medical care. A can-do guy, always and always generous. Generous with his time, generous with his money, generous with his affection. How will we navigate the void left by such a dedicated and loving soul? I don't think it can be done, but there is one thing I know for sure. Roy wanted more than anything for us to be happy. He would want us to recover. He would want us to remember him with a smile in our hearts. He would want us, when we were sad, to remember some crazy thing he did or some way he made us feel special and find a way to smile. Of course, for a while, we will all be heartbroken. There is no other way to trudge through this path so thickly strewn with grief. As we emerge in our own time, I hope it is with the realization that we were so richly blessed with the time we did have with our zany, loving Roy. Besides honoring Roy's wish for us to go on laughing, Roy believed in paying things forward. So think of some crazy thing to do, make someone laugh, and say, "This one's for you, Roy." That would make him happy indeed. In the office, Roy was affectionately known as Dr. Perfect. And he was. He read every medical journal, always wanting to be sure he had the most up-to-date information when caring for his patients. Here again, he wanted to be the best doctor could be. He never left the office until he answered all of his patients' phone calls. Dr. Perfect. Roy's friends were treated like family and equally loved. He always treasured the great times together. Of all Roy's titles, his favorite was Daddy. That, he often said, was his favorite word. And what lengths he went in order to show the kids a great time. Their laughter was music to his ears, and he needed to hear it often. During family gatherings, he often had his nieces and nephews in stitches too. They all recalled so many funny stories. Roy was always the life of the party, and even had a list of 100 punchlines in his phone as a quick reference in case he needed a joke. One nephew recalled a twerking demo, another being mooned, and another being taught how to find good garbage on trash night. All part of Roy's shtick, all part of his charm, and that is why he will be so deeply missed. Wherever you are, Roy, I know everyone is having a great time. Thank you for the laughter, and the love, and the warmth of your embrace. I'm going to carry it in my heart forever and use it to light the darkness.
Roy made us promise to put a fart machine in his coffin at his funeral. We didn't do that. Sorry. But I will open with a joke, which I hope is appropriately inappropriate for Roy. A man goes to a funeral, and he asks the widow if he can say a word, and she says yes. He stands up and says, "Plethora," and sits down. "Thanks," said the widow. "That means a lot." Okay. Thank you all for being here to celebrate Roy's life, to mourn his passing. There wasn't much Roy asked for his funeral, other than the fart machine, but one of the few things he was adamant about was that he wanted us as much as possible to laugh and to smile. Roy lived for two things: to experience the richness that life and the world had to offer, and to give and be uplifted by seeing those he helped thriving. Every experience with Roy was memorable. Discussions over Shabbat dinner were always vibrant. There was never small talk. Every vacation was full of stories and memories and laughter. Every Passover Seder had a new twist, a new way to celebrate. One had fireworks. Literally. Roy made it his purpose to make every experience as vivid and as memorable as can be. Conversations would swing from worldly matters to life details to philosophy to crass humor, with natural laughter along the way with every sentence. But you all know that. I know every one of you lived that same life with Roy every step of the way. And while we are sad to see Roy leave us so soon, I take comfort in knowing that he lived life to the fullest every day. He lived more in his 65 years than many people could ever dream of. When the cancer came back, we all knew what it meant. He wasn't angry or in denial. He was sad for the experiences that he would never get to have. He said it himself: "I don't feel that life owes me anything. I've done and seen so much. I'm just not ready to say goodbye to all of you yet." He never put off until tomorrow what he could experience today. More, I want to talk about Roy's giving nature. He lived his life to give. He got no greater joy than to see those around him lifted up by his presence in their lives. To us, he was a provider. To his community, a giver. To his patients, a healer. Roy loved everyone around him deeply, passionately, and personally. He appreciated every life detail from everyone. He didn't ask friends about their days. He asked about their lives. When it came to Mom, me, Dan, and Alana, there was never anything that he was doing that he wouldn't drop in an instant if we needed his help. If you ask his patients, they will all tell you that they never felt he was treating health conditions, but their entire person. When it came to his community, there was never a need too small or too great. Roy was always there whenever anyone needed a volunteer, an organizer, a leader, a contributor. He loved being the one that could be counted on to step in, whatever the need. And he had to be perfect, as you heard. Being at every Little League game for us wasn't enough. Coaching our Little League teams wasn't good enough. He kept spreadsheets and logs of every position every kid played so that he could make sure that everyone got to play every position every season. He was relentless in making sure that every last detail was ideal as it could be. He knew that the effort he put in was important to me and my friends, and he knew that the effort he brought in would bring and enrich everyone and bring them joy 10 to or 100-fold what he put in. And seeing that joy was what brought him joy himself. It was important to him, not just to do the best he could at everything, but to encourage everyone around him as well. Roy's coworkers universally described him as intense. That is the understatement of the century. When it came to being a doctor and providing health care, there was no such thing as good enough, because it was quite literally a matter of life and death. There was never an excuse for risking harm to a single patient by not bringing every one of his or anyone else's body and mind to the task. And he taught us and everyone around him to hold themselves to that same standard. Roy had a darker side, a side touched by pain, by sorrow, by trauma, by loss. It's a side I hope most of you didn't know, but for those of you who did, I take comfort knowing that you loved the whole person, not just a part, because he truly was a beautiful, beautiful person. And I mention it not to criticize the dead, but to further praise. Roy was the giver, the healer, the helper we all knew, not because he was utterly pure of heart, but in spite of a darkness that he knew must be conquered. When faced with demons, he did his utmost not to give in, but instead to give more, to heal more, to help more, to love more. I've learned many lessons from Roy over the decades, but if there's one overarching one, it's this. Even if in our weakest moments we fail to live up to our own standards, we can never let those moments define us. We can never accept an excuse for falling short, but instead stand back up and promise ourselves and those around us not just to make things right, not just to do better next time, to do the very best that we can every time. And that's who Roy was, and that's how he lived his days. And when it came to Tikkun Olam, a principle Roy elevated to being as important as the belief in Hashem itself, good enough was never good enough. I remember a song, From a Distance, by Julie Gold, that Roy enjoyed. The song told of how the world was beautiful and pure when viewed from afar, and that God is watching us. He never expected to be repaid, to be rewarded for his dedication to Tikkun Olam. It was enough that it was what God wants, and that it is each and every one of our responsibilities to heal the hurts of everyday life, so that the people around him could live a life as beautiful as the world itself when viewed from afar. And now he's no longer with us, and we have a lot of work to do to fill that void. I know this is a room full of helpers, and I know I don't need to ask any one of you to give, to heal, to love. But I also know that Roy would want his loss to drive us to rededicate ourselves to giving, not just to make up for his loss, but to exceed it. And to follow Roy's request by ending this not on a heavy note, but one of levity and joy, I'll tell you about a birthday party I had. Roy was going to take me and a dozen of my friends to a Phillies game, and we were going to stop for ice cream on the way back. The game went into extra innings, and it was raining. I think it was 15 innings after all was told, some hour and a half more, with a bunch of overtired children, and then some. And by the time we were driving back from the Phillies game, it was stressful. We were all wet and cold and tired and irritated, and Roy made sure that we were still stopping at Friendly's for ice cream, because it was important to him to make that experience as perfect as it could be. And he wasn't going to let a little setback, a game that went too long, some kids who were getting a little overtired, some rain, anything, stop from that. He knew that he wanted us to have the superlative experience that he planned, and he was going to make sure that we had it. That's who he was, and that's how he wanted us to remember him. Thank you for all being a part of Roy's and our whole family's wonderful, hilarious story. Baruch Dayana Emet.
Hi everyone, thanks for coming out to help us celebrate Dad's life. When I look around and see everyone here, one of the first words that I think of when I think about Dad comes to mind, which is community. Dad loved his communities, whether it was his band of friends growing up in Mill Basin, to the colleagues he worked with at BMA in Cooper, to the Cherry Hill Jewish community around TBS. Dad would always remind me throughout life that in everything you do, what you get out of it is a function of what you put into it. No one here needs reminding of all the effort that Roy Levinson put into his social and work lives. But seeing the outpouring of love and support that came his way and to our family over the past 2 years as he battled this terrible disease really drove that lesson home for me. From the bottom of my heart, I want to thank each and every one of you for the messages of encouragement, time spent with him between chemo treatments, the thoughtful gifts, and everything else you've all done to come together for our family and ensure to Dad and all of us that we did not have to go through this battle alone. It is thanks to all this love and support that Dad was able to fight for a brief remission and bless all of our lives with a few more months of laughter, zany antics, funny stories, happy memories, and most importantly to me, getting to stand by my side as I married the love of my life and my soulmate. Thank you all for making that possible for me and my family, from the bottom of my heart. I mentioned above that Dad put a lot of effort into everything that he did, from being a doctor to a TBS community member and his most proud title, Dad. I'm reminded of one of the last conversations that I had with Dad before his passing. I was telling him how much I admired him for all the effort that he always put into everything that he did, how much I appreciated all the sacrifices that he made in order to give us the best life that he possibly could provide. And he responded by telling me that I was right about everything except for one thing, that it was a sacrifice. He truly did not see all of the service that he provided to those he loved as effort or sacrifice. This was genuinely what brought joy to his life. To see the love that he poured into everything turn into making the world a better place for those around him and those less fortunate was one of the things that really brought him the greatest satisfaction in life. And I think this is one of the big parts of what truly makes him a mensch to me. It's one thing to recognize the importance of doing mitzvot and fulfilling tikkun olam, but it's another thing entirely to have it so ingrained in your DNA that the idea of living your life any other way would not even present itself as an option. Dad was an entertainer at his core. He loved to be on stage. Whether his audience was a packed house for an epic synagogue rendition of Fiddler on the Roof, or just me and my close friends around the kitchen table, he would stop at no end to obtain belly laughs from everyone around him, even if it was at the expense of his kids' embarrassment. I'm sure he knew we would look back on those memories fondly. I doubt many people in attendance today have failed to see Roy Levinson break out into song or dance on more than one occasion. Since his passing, every time someone has reached out to me to send condolences, they always say how glad they were to know him and witness some of these antics. This reminds me of a very important lesson that he would not want us to soon forget. To have fun. Don't care what other people think too much. Live your life to the fullest every moment. Be the weird and zany guy that everybody tells stories about. You only get one chance at this life, so make the most of the time you have and leave lots of funny memories and stories behind for those you love to hold on to. I know we could all spend the rest of our lives telling Dad stories, and we'd hardly have to tell them twice. That is a very valuable gift that he's left all of us with that I'll truly cherish. Speaking of funny memories, as Josh mentioned, Dad would always tell us he wanted his funeral to be a happy occasion, and in order to make sure he left us all with one more laugh, he pleaded with us to put his beloved fart machine in the casket so he could bless us with one more fart, and then probably quickly claim that it was just a Fetzel. Well, Dad, this hardly seems appropriate, and Platt informed us that no electronics are allowed to be placed inside the coffin. So I'm sorry to disappoint, but I'm trying to do a speech here. There we go. There's a good one. Thanks, Austin. Alright, kept our promise. Dad was a healer. He was not just a doctor. Yes, he was an outstanding physician and a tireless worker at that, but his practice of medicine went far beyond a simple diagnosis and treatment. One of Dad's favorite movies and role models was Patch Adams. And I'd like to share 2 quotes from this movie. We need to start treating the patient as well as the disease. And remember laughing. Laughter enhances the blood flow to the body's extremities and improves cardiovascular function. Laughter releases endorphins and other natural mood-elevating and pain-killing chemicals, improves the transfer of oxygen and nutrients to internal organs. Laughter boosts the immune system and helps the body fight off disease, cancer cells as well as viral, bacterial, and other infections. Being happy is the best cure of all diseases. I don't know the validity of that scientifically, but to me these two quotes embody Roy Levinson's approach to medicine more than anything. Dad believed that it wasn't enough to just treat a patient physically, but you must treat their spirit as well, and his favorite tool to do so was obviously laughter. Dad had such a natural way of making people laugh. And without violating HIPAA, I'd like to share one story. One morning, Dad had one of his heavier patients in the office. Before he could even begin taking his history, the patient proudly exclaimed, "Dr. Levinson, I lost 5 pounds." And without missing a beat, Dad goes, "Yeah, what'd you skip, breakfast?" Well, we can certainly comment on his use of tact. He definitely had this way of making his appointments feel less like they were going to visit their doctor, but rather going to see a good friend who would assure them that everything was going to be all right. And in this way, he saved and improved countless lives over the course of his 40-plus year career. He really was a living Patch Adams. I want to go a little off script right now because completely coincidentally, I walked into my mother's room this morning and I'd already written all this out and knew what I was going to talk about. But she happened to have 2 letters on her desk from patients of Dad's, which we have boxes and boxes of. But I read them, and it was just so validating to me to read these words and everything that I kind of felt to myself about how Dad treated being a doctor, to see it come from his patients. So I just want to share a couple quotes from some of these letters. I'll leave names out, obviously. "For over 20 years, you have taken care and looked at for not only my physical well-being, but also that of my at times tumultuous psyche. You have helped to keep breath in my life and lungs. I could not have asked for a more dedicated, conscientious, and caring doctor. You are a remarkable human being, and I've been blessed to have had you at the helm of my health. You are my thoughts and shall remain close to my heart." And the second one comes from another patient who over 20 years Dad saw just about every member of their family. She goes on to talk about some important diagnoses that Dad made that saved a couple of her family members' lives. But this one I kind of wanted to read one quote about the funny aspect of Dad's healing. So after she talks about some of the more serious experiences, she says, "Now I would like to tell you of a couple fun things we have in common. I remember I was having serious earaches. I was walking around with cotton in my ears to ease the pain. I even saw an ENT doctor who said my ear canals were fine. You said I had a sinus infection. I said, I can breathe. It's my ears that hurt. Dad looked her in the eyes and said, what medical school did you go to?" Okay. I've talked about Roy, the dedicated member of his community. I've talked about Roy, the entertainer. And I've talked about Roy, the decade after decade South Jersey and Philadelphia top doctor. But most importantly to me, Roy Levinson was my best friend. We would do just about everything together. The world can be a very scary and lonely place growing up. But Dad always made sure that I never felt alone in this world. He was the most loyal man I've ever met, and he loved harder than anyone I know. He always had your back. I remember a teacher at Kelman who just seemed to have it out for Josh and I. Josh used to always come home from school complaining about him day after day. When I took his class 4 years later, it was the same situation. He just seemed to have it out for me too. And after missing the first day of class due to an illness, I came into school the next day and was told I would not be allowed to participate in the class's lesson due to not having my textbook. Despite explaining that I missed the first day of class, I was forced to sit and watch helplessly and told I would have to go buy a textbook if I wanted to participate in the next class. Well, he picked on the wrong father's son to pick on. I came home exasperated and I explained the situation to Dad, and I remember him immediately picking up the phone and dialing the school and not stopping until he had this teacher on the line. And I won't share the entire conversation, but the words that always stuck with me from this conversation were, No, you listen to me, you fat cow. When my son walks into class tomorrow morning, you are going to have a brand new textbook waiting on his desk, and you are going to apologize. Well, needless to say, when I walked into class the next morning, there was a brand new textbook waiting on my desk. Again, tact was not his strong suit. But he always had your back, and he always let you know it, not only with words, but with actions. And when I wrote this last section, I realized there's one more word I just had to throw in. When I talk about Dad as a community member, and a father, and a doctor, and an entertainer, Dad always made sure life was fun. Life was just fun around Roy Levinson. He really was my best buddy. We would play tennis, golf, baseball, go for bike rides, go skiing, or just sit and complain about how the Phillies found a new way to lose a baseball game day after day. We loved to spend time together, and we really found being around each other such a pleasant and easy experience. He always had a fun story to tell, and he always wanted to know about what was going on in our lives. When I think back to my greatest accomplishments, the first thing that always comes to mind was rushing to tell Dad, and relish in the joy it brought him to see us reach our goals and to make him proud. Dad was truly our #1 fan. He didn't miss a single game, performance, swim meet, anything. Despite working tireless hours in the hospital, it was his greatest pleasure to rush to his kids' events and make sure they knew that Dad was there to cheer them on. More than anything, I think I'm just going to miss the simple comfort of his presence. The intensity in which he listened to what you had to say, genuinely cared about what was going on in your life, and the advice that he would bestow. Can't thank you enough, Dad, for 30 amazing years of friendship, guidance, love, and entertainment that you shared with me. For teaching me how to be a good person, how to make the world a better place, to care for those around you, and put others before yourself. I will try my best to carry on your legacy and make sure your joy lives on. I will never find it fair that you were taken from us this soon, that you will never get to be the amazing grandpa that you would have been, and to watch you and Mom grow old together. But still, I wouldn't have traded the 30 years I got with you for anything in the world. Thank you for everything.
This is unfathomable, but I'll try. My father was unconventional. He was soft and gentle, but intensely passionate about what he believed. He loved his cats, starring in community theater shows, collecting seashells, long bike rides, his Shabbos naps, and the Phillies. He was proud to be Brooklyn born and raised. And when he wanted you to think he was tough, the accent came out. There are things about my relationship with my dad that would have been clear to anyone who knew us. Like that we loved show tunes. And watching musicals was one of our favorite things to do together. That we loved engaging in Judaism for all of its beauty. And mostly for the ways it makes us think deeply about our role in this changing world. And that we're both strong-willed. We didn't shy away from challenging each other. And then there were the ways that we were together that you'd never know. Like when I was little and we used to drive home from theater rehearsals, we'd practice singing together. The acoustics in the car always made our voices sound a lot better. Or that when we discussed how we felt about the world, we tended to come down on our answers to Hillel's 3 questions. I learned a lot from my dad. I learned about medicine, of course, but I also learned about Torah about Brooklyn before people like me started ruining it. I learned music I now love, about Jewish immigration to the United States. I learned how to lead Friday night Kiddush and how to plan the most memorable Passover Seder your guests will ever attend. Learned about balancing work and play and how to take myself a little bit less seriously. But by far the most important lesson I learned from my dad is the value of loving someone who is different from you. We all fall easily into relationships with people we have a lot in common with, the people who look at the world the way we do. With those people, we can expect they'll know what we mean. We can make passing comments, we can be glib, and never need to explain our thinking. But those are not the relationships that help us to grow. My dad and I are different. We clashed often, and sometimes those moments were hard. But often, the times when our views differed were the times we learned the most about each other. That's when I learned the most about myself. And it's the moments we challenged each other, when we disagreed, that we summoned the bravery to say to each other, I want to share the earth and these precious moments with you. Dad, I hope you're experiencing something blissful beyond our imaginations. I hope you're playing golf. I hope you're singing in the most heavenly choir there ever was. I hope you found a way to tell your members of Congress to continue to support Israel even without your constant calls. I hope you're collecting seashells and sand dollars. And I hope you dance. I hope you're dancing. And as for me, in the name of God, to my right, my left, in front of me and behind me, and wherever you are, I'm surrounded by angels.
Thank you, Ilana, and Dan, and Josh, and Eileen, for sharing those beautiful memories and reflections about Roy. You know, not long after Roy was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in August of 2019, he called me. And we talked about a variety of things, some related to his diagnosis and some not. And then he got to his point. Rabbi, he said, I need you to promise me something. Anything, Roy, I replied. What is it? He said, I need you to promise me that my funeral will be fun. I said, fun? What do you mean? And he went on. He said, I know it will be sad, and that's okay. People should be sad that I'm gone. But you know me. I love making people happy. I love making them laugh. And I don't want people to only cry at my funeral. I want it to be a celebration. I want them to remember all the good things, the funny things, the jokes, the laughter. I want them to smile. So Dan, I think the fart machine was a good move. That conversation was quintessential Roy. Honest, direct, thinking about how he could make all of us smile, even when he knew he wouldn't be here. Over the last few weeks, and especially over the last few days, as family and friends shared story after generous, funny, thoughtful, laugh-out-loud story about Roy, I realized what a sad irony it is that he passed away right after we read Parshat Naso this past Shabbat. The word Naso means to lift up. And that's exactly what Roy did. Throughout his life, as a husband, a father, a son, a brother, an uncle, a physician, an actor, a singer, a volunteer, a davener, and a friend. Roy lifted people up. He helped make us smile, make us laugh, to have fun. Oh, we all wish that Roy had more time with us. We are also grateful for how Roy lived. Not so. Lifting people up. I don't think that I can make this moment fun, but I do think that we all have had more fun in our lives because of Roy Levinson. Roy grew up in Brooklyn with his parents Barbara and Irving, Zichrono Livracha, and his sister Amy. He was an excellent student. He actually skipped 2 grades in elementary school. And he loved baseball and performing and making people smile, which we know he did throughout his life. And growing up also, Roy loved going to shul. And he continued going every Shabbat after his bar mitzvah. And it was during this time, Eileen said, that Roy developed not only his lifelong love of shul, but also of Israel. His grandfather was an ardent Zionist and active in Israel bonds. And Eileen showed me a picture on the wall of their home of 16-year-old Roy, his grandfather, and Yitzhak Rabin. His grandfather made sure that Roy traveled to Israel on a team tour, and of course he would return to Israel many times and get active in organizations to support Israel, such as AIPAC. And Roy often liked to tell me how, when he was growing up, he often thought about becoming a rabbi or a cantor. Though Roy chose medicine instead of becoming clergy, he did much in his life to lift up our community, Israel, and the Jewish people. Not so. He went to Brandeis, where he graduated Phi Beta Kappa, and then NYU for medical school, where he graduated #1 in his class. And it was when Roy was a first-year resident at NYU that he met Eileen, who was working as a nurse in the same hospital. Eileen said that she could tell that he liked her, but he didn't ask her out. And she wondered if it had to do with the fact that she was blonde and her name was Eileen, and he thought she wasn't Jewish. So one weekend she went home to Long Island and got her Magen David necklace, her Jewish star necklace. And when she wore it proudly the next day to the hospital, she said, Roy noticed and made a beeline right towards her. But she beat him to it. She asked him out first. And they went to a restaurant, and Eileen, I love this part. You said that the moment you told him that you went to Hebrew high school, he reached across the table, grabbed your hand, and never let go. And you knew that was it. This smart, handsome intern who impressed you as funny, competent, and good at everything would become your husband. You were married in 1982, and spent 39 years of marriage together, 41 all in total. And as many of you know, just about a month ago, Dan and Hagar got married in a small ceremony in Roy and Eileen's backyard. And Hagar had suggested they move up their wedding so Roy could be there. And this is just one of the many examples of love and compassion that all of you performed for Roy. And at the ceremony, I spoke about the 10 expressions of joy that we sing about in the Sheva Brachot. Joy, gladness, pleasure, song, delight, laughter, love, harmony, peace, and companionship. But after the ceremony, I sat with Roy at the kitchen table, and he reflected on these 10 expressions of joy, saying how grateful he felt to have experienced each one of them with you, Eileen. How blessed he felt to have a partner like you, to build a home and a life together, one that was infused with joy and laughter, love, and companionship. This has always been apparent in your relationship, but especially in these past 2 years, and even more so in these last few weeks, where you made Roy's wish of being on hospice at home possible. Your love and dedication to Roy throughout your life together was truly a fulfillment of those blessings recited under your chuppah. After you were married, He went to San Diego for a few years as Roy had a position, and that's where Josh was born. And then in 1986, you came to Cherry Hill, and Dan and Ilana came along. Now, you all spoke beautifully about your dad, but I think the most beautiful statement you each made about your dad and your mom is how all of you were there for them these last 2 years, and especially this last month and a half. It has been a terribly difficult time, but you confronted it together, along with Becky and Hagar. And this is a testament to you, but also to your parents, and the example they set, and the love they shared with you. Now so, each day, under such difficult circumstances, you've been there to lift each other up. Okay, people aren't smiling enough. I can even tell under your masks. Sorry, Roy, I'll do better. Let's talk practical jokes. Roy loved practical jokes. How many of you had a practical joke played on you by Roy? We're going to have some good stories later about that. For Roy, April Fool's Day was a national holiday. Eileen recalled one April Fool's Day during the Iraq War when Roy presented her with a letter on Pentagon stationery that called him up to serve as a critical care position in Iraq. And Eileen was sick about it, she said, until he revealed that he had downloaded the stationery and forged the letter. And then there was the other time when Roy got upset about something the president had done. I didn't ask which president. And he called the White House to complain. Of course, he called the White House to complain when the president did something he didn't like. Soon after, he had someone from his office call Eileen claiming to be the Secret Service. They said they're investigating a threat that Roy Levinson had. Said that no matter how many jokes Roy played, she always fell for it. Roy loved just having fun and making people laugh. And this did extend to his career as a physician, as we've heard. His personality endeared him to his office staff, despite apparently having to make multiple prank calls on his behalf. And when he became sick, his staff sent a video montage of pictures and messages and also made him a beautiful quilt. Though Roy liked to goof around, we know he was very serious about his responsibilities as a doctor. He was a dedicated physician who cared deeply about his patients and their well-being, as we heard from some of the messages that Dan shared. And he often made house calls to those that had a hard time getting into the office. He knew how to talk to people and could explain difficult diagnoses in a way that the patients could understand. He was called, as Eileen said, Dr. Perfect. And he was also known as the doctor of last resort, the one with whom colleagues would consult when they were dealing with a difficult case. And Roy did everything he could to figure it out, and often he did. Not so. Roy loved being a physician, and over the course of his career, his knowledge, medical acumen, and bedside manner lifted many people up. And then, of course, there's Roy's other love, TBS. On that word, not so, the 13th century commentator Ramban says that what most uplifts people is taking an active part as a member of a community. And that's exactly what Roy did at TBS. Soon after moving to Cherry Hill, Roy came to Shabbat services and programs, and a few years later he came with 4-year-old Josh to participate in the Torah procession from Haddon Heights to Cherry Hill. Roy's love for shul as a child blossomed as an adult in our community, and we are so grateful that it did. He's been a fixture at TBS for decades. On Shabbat, Roy is most in his element. He's one of our regular daveners on Friday night and Shabbat morning, a regular Haftorah reader, and a frequent participant in our Torah discussions. And as much as Roy enjoyed the service, he enjoyed Kiddush even more. It combined two of his great loves, eating and schmoozing. And boy, was he good at both. I have this picture in my mind of Roy with plate in hand and cracker with tuna fish in the other, some bits falling out of his mouth, speaking passionately to one person on this side of the room, then seeing someone else on the other side and running over there, plate in hand, not missing a bite to continue the conversation. He loved checking in with everybody. And of course, Roy is also as active in our men's club, chairing Men's Club Shabbat, where he encouraged other members to participate in the service to help us put together beautiful Shabbat mornings. And Roy, of course, also was a member of Makelat Beit Shalom, our choir, since its inception in the 80s, and also a founding board member of Al's Chorale. His love of singing and performing came together when he started his Tevye and Fiddler on the Roof, as we heard. Josh said it was his dad's role of a lifetime. And by all accounts, Roy made the most of it. And he kept making the most of it, reprising the role whenever he could. Cantor Cohen recalled Roy at a choir get-together at her home, belting out "If I Were a Rich Man" with his chemo bag over his shoulder. This, she said, was emblematic of his positivity, his love of entertaining, his need never to miss a chance for fun, and his desire to make everyone feel good, no matter how he was feeling. Roy was always first in line for anything involving singing at TBS. He was one of the founding members of Shir Halev, and was also happy to donate his time, energy, funds, and of course, she said, his big, bold, expressive voice. And one of her most powerful memories of Roy, Cantor Cohen said, is of him using that voice to read Haftorah this past Yom Kippur. He was the last one to film our pre-recorded services that day. And he was so happy and proud to be able to be reading. Additionally, Roy participated in the Chazon bike ride in Israel with Michael Yasner, Leah Bronstein, and many others, as well as chairing our sustainability committee that helped TBS receive our Chazon's seal of sustainability. He led to Bishvat Seders, regularly attended APAC conferences, and supported Israel as a plus giver, along with other anonymous donations to help those in need. And for all of this, next Tuesday night, at our annual meeting, Roy will be given our David J. Levy Award for Outstanding Volunteer Leadership, TBS's highest honor. Though we are heartbroken that Roy will not be able to be there to receive this honor, I'm glad that we were able to tell Roy about it and that he pre-recorded an acceptance speech with Alana's help that we'll share at the annual meeting. Not so. Roy lifted us up, and he will continue to lift us up. And the outpouring of grief and support from all of you who are here today in person and virtually is a testament to Roy's impact. All those who sat Shmirah for Roy, who signed up to bring meals for the family, everyone who will share a memory about Roy at Shiva or a message with the family, all of this is a result of Roy's impact on us. Along with Eileen and your family, you have all lifted us up. And now we are here to do whatever we can to help lift you up. That's something Roy understood with his dedication to community. That's just also part of his legacy. Not so. Before I conclude, I have to share one final story about Roy that is close to my heart. A couple of years ago, at a men's club steak and scotch dinner, Roy asked me if I collected baseball cards as a kid. And I had. And he said that he'd been going through some old boxes and found his card collection from the 1960s, and asked if I wanted the cards of the Minnesota Twins players that he found. It was very thoughtful, and I said that I would love to see them. And later that week, Roy came by with a stack of Twins cards. And we sat in my office and went through them together. It was fun talking baseball together, along with all the memories that those conversations evoke. And as we were looking through them, we realized that with his cards we could field the entire 1965 Twins World Series team. And I mentioned that my father, whose birthday was coming up, would love that. So Roy suggested I buy a frame, and I put the team in the frame to give him. And I did. And my father very much appreciated it, and it still hangs in his office. And I had him take a picture of it, and I sent it to Roy with a thank you note with the cards and the inspiration. And he was so touched and so happy that he could do something to make me happy. That was Roy. We've all had an experience like that with him. Always thinking about others, always looking for ways to make people happy, looking to have fun and to bring smiles to our faces. Today, with apologies to my friend, it's hard to have fun. But we each know that when we think of Roy, it will be with a smile. And that's because at one point or another, with a smile, a joke, a thoughtful comment, a diagnosis, a helping hand, Roy lifted each of us up. And it is for this reason that we know that his memory will always be for a blessing. We rise for a final prayer. Exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and the pure to the soul of Roy Levinson, who has gone to his eternal home. Merciful One, we ask that our loved one find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May his soul be bound up in the bonds of life. May he rest in peace, and let us say, Amen. You may be seated. From here, we'll head to Locustwood Cemetery in Cherry Hill for the burial. Shiva will be tonight at 7:30 p.m. at the Levinson's home, 109 Southeast Gate Drive in Cherry Hill. And then tomorrow night and Thursday night, Wednesday and Thursday evenings, also at 7:30 p.m. at the tent in the parking lot of Temple Beth Shalom.
You have the folder, please. I would ask you to rise once more, please.
Thank you.
For everything is a season, a time for every experience under heaven. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to uproot. A time to bear and tear down and a time to lift up. A time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to grieve and a time to dance. A time to throw stones and a time to gather. A time to embrace and a time to refrain. Time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to let go, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silent and a time to speak.
Line for the bathroom?
Yeah.
There is? Okay. I was taking my chances. No, I'll go ahead. They'll be here. I'll go.
No, just follow me.
No, it's all right. It's all right. Oh, yeah.
There's another one over here.
Okay.
Just don't have the lights on.
You never want to be the one who's holding the door.
Back to the overflow bathroom.